For many people, Christmas is a season of almost oppressive cheer. We are assaulted by crass advertisements and saccharine images of families on television that don't align with the experiences that many of us have in dealing with our relatives. In short, Christmas can be a difficult time of year, but did you know that Yuletide celebrations often had a much darker and more violent meaning? Many of the greatest myths of the holidays originate with the Germanic and Scandinavian cultures, steeped in harsh winters where death was commonplace. There, winters meant the end of the harvest and the time to slaughter cattle so they wouldn't need to be fed during the coldest months. After a time, these practices became the foundation of pre-Christian rituals. Winter became the season of death, and spirits were said to haunt the world. In time, these tales would be taken over by Christian myths. The dark gods of the woods became spirits of punishment, walking alongside St. Nicholas to torment children. They are now the shadow side of Christmas, and it's a good time of year to tell their stories. Here are our favorite, ghosts of the Christmas season. Many tales of Christmas demons are moral tales, the worst monsters feeding on the worst kids. But not the Yola, the Icelandic Yule cat. It doesn't matter if you're naughty or nice. If he catches you in the winter snow, he'll devour you. This terror was described as a massive cat with razor-sharp fangs, whiskers that could cut down trees, and claws that could rip a victim apart. While Yola doesn't particularly care if you've been a good person or not, he is repelled by new clothing. The only way to keep yourself safe is to hope that your family was nice enough to give you a new pair of socks. There are a lot of stories about white horses in the British Isles. They were symbols of fertility and abundance, and they appear in many local myths. One in particular, the Lloyd, is a frightening tradition from Wales. Known playfully to modern enthusiasts as the Christmas zombie horse, the Lloyd is represented by revelers who carry a horse skull on a pole that has been draped with white linen and flowers. The revelers would go wassailing door to door and challenge the owners to contests of wit and riddles. After the games were completed, the revelers were invited inside to feast and drink. The presence of the Lloyd is said to frighten away harmful spirits and bad fortune. Guerrilla is another monster from Iceland, one associated with the Yule cat. Guerrilla, however, is far worse and more horrifying. Appearing as a haggard old witch with a long nose and a hunched body, this troll hunted naughty children. Any she caught were put into a sack, which she would then take back to her cave in the mountains and devour them alive. Accompanied by her 13 children, a mischievous group known as the Yule lads, Guerrilla would wait to find the most badly behaved child, even going so far as looking for particularly fussy babies. The worst of the worst would wind up in her cooking pot, or even devoured alive in her cold mountain cave. One of the few creatures on this video that isn't actively malevolent, La Benaffa is an Italian witch who appears as a deformed woman riding a broom greased with goose or duck fat. The story goes that she was asked by the 3 wise men to join them in their search for the Christ child. She took too long to get ready, and the wise men left her behind. Now, she soars the night looking for Christ. She visits homes and, if she finds any children, she will leave candy and cookies for them. It goes to show that beauty is only skin deep, but candy and cookies are forever. One of my favorite Christmas terror tales, Père Fouettard, is another spirit of punishment. Originally from France, Père Fouettard's name means Father Whipper, and his legend is rooted in stories of highwaymen and evil innkeepers who murder travelers for their money. According to a 12th century legend, Père Fouettard was either an innkeeper or a butcher. He heard that 3 young boys were traveling through his region on religious orders, so he conspired with his wife to lure them to his home. There, he slit the boys' throat and dismembered them before hiding their bodies in a salt barrel. St. Nicholas found out what happened and resurrected the boys before returning them safely home. As punishment, Père Fouettard was forced to serve St. Nick for all eternity. Once a powerful and handsome man, Père Fouettard barely looks human anymore. Hundreds of years of sleeping in filth and being filled with bitterness at his predicament have made him a stooped and miserable figure. He carries a switch and wields it with glee at the few naughty children that St. Nicholas believes deserve punishment. Imagine if Ebenezer Scrooge got worse after his experiences with the ghosts of Christmas, but then he went insane and became an evil scarecrow. Then you might have an idea about what Hans Topp would be like. In life, Hans Topp was a tremendously greedy and selfish man who worshipped Satan in Alsace and Lorraine, France. In exchange for worship, the Dark Lord made Hans Topp a wealthy man. He enjoyed life as a big, rich prick before his neighbors discovered his blasphemous practices and excommunicated him. His notoriety caused him to lose his wealth and status in society, so he withdrew to a cabin in the deepest part of the wilderness, where he slowly went mad. That's when children started going missing from the woods. Hans Trapp continued his sinister worship, but he now offered the blood and flesh of the children he took as tribute. To capture them, he would dress up as a scarecrow and wait for children to stumble upon him while exploring the woods. Finally, when he was about to consume the flesh of one of his victims on Christmas Eve, God slew him with a lightning bolt. Not even death could stop Hans Trapp's evil. They say he's still out there in the woods somewhere, dressed in his scarecrow costume, appearing to naughty children. He always wants to kill and devour them, of course, but now all he can do is scare them into good behavior. If you're watching this video, you probably already know who Krampus is. A pagan demon from pre-Christianity, or the devil himself, depending on what you believe. He was captured by St. Nicholas. Bound to permanent servitude, this demon gets his own special day before Christmas, where he's allowed to torment wicked children. The best a bad child could hope for is a couple of solid whacks with a willow switch, but the worst would be stuffed into a sack and taken to the underworld. Krampus is by far the most popular anti-Santa, and massive parades are thrown every year to celebrate his legacy. Revelers were getting out of hand this year, wrecking property and scaring children. Sounds like my kind of holiday celebration. In Norway and Sweden, December 13th is St. Lucia's Day. This is meant to celebrate a 4th century martyr, and traditional celebrations involve the saint being represented by a young woman in a white gown, wearing a wreath crown on her head with a circle of lit candles lighting a halo above her. Like many things, the image we have is a sanitized and clean version of the pre-Christian myths behind them. A long time ago, Lucia was Lucy, and she was the head of a massive festival that will last through the night. Pity the poor human caught in the festivities, because December 13th was when the dead were supposed to walk the land and when the gates of hell were opened. At the head of it all was the Lucy. Hideous and hateful, she flew through the night with her entourage of demons. They were looking for people to kill. Still, all good Christians could keep themselves safe by hiding indoors and painting a crucifix on the doorway. Without victims to torment, the Lucy would amuse herself by destroying crops, poisoning wells, and butchering livestock. If you were a good little child, you would want to meet the Perchta during Christmas. She appears before you as a beautiful young woman, decked out in furs and other old costuming, and she would praise you and give you treats in gratitude for your faithfulness, decency, and adherence to tradition. Now imagine being a bad little child and meeting the Perchta. This time, she is a warped and bitter-faced old woman with hateful eyes and a scream like a banshee. You could try to run away or hide in some deep, dark corner, but she always finds her prey. Once she catches you, she slits your belly open, removes your entrails, and replaces them with straw and pebbles. Those who would find your ruined corpse the following day would be reminded of the costs of wickedness. So there you go. Tell these tales around the Christmas fire, and maybe you'll scare some little kids quiet. Happy holidays, creeps.